Hello, good evening. Welcome to the weekend's news at 7. Tonight, a man suspected of murdering two senior figures from a Scottish organised crime group in a Spanish bar has been arrested in Liverpool. Iran warns it will target UK, US and French forces in the region if they help defend Israel as the crisis between the countries deepens. And a manhunt is underway for a gunman who killed a US politician and her husband while impersonating a police officer in the state of Minnesota. Hello, I'm Graham Stewart. Welcome to the news at 7. Hello, good evening. A man suspected of murdering two senior figures from a Scottish organised crime group in a Spanish bar has been arrested in Liverpool. The BBC understands that Michael Riley was taken into custody by Merseyside police under an international arrest warrant issued by the Spanish authorities. Our news correspondent Jamie McIver reports.
Eddie Lyons Jr. and Ross Monaghan were shot dead in Fuengirola in the Costa del Sol on the 31st of May. The two men had been watching the Champions League final with friends. They were targeted at Monaghan's bar on the resort's beachfront. Both men were connected to the Lyons family, a major organised crime group based in the west of Scotland. Eddie Lyons died from a single shot to the chest outside the venue. Ross Monaghan was pursued inside the bar and shot 4 or 5 times. Scottish detectives have been helping the Spanish police with their investigation, providing information on the men's backgrounds. Michael Riley was taken into custody in Liverpool by Merseyside police under an international arrest warrant issued by the Spanish authorities. Today he appeared at Westminster Magistrates Court in London. A further hearing via video link is scheduled for next week. According to Scottish detectives, there's nothing to suggest the shooting on the Costa del Sol was planned in Scotland. Police Scotland also say there's no intelligence to suggest the deaths there were linked to an ongoing gangland feud in central Scotland. Jamie McIver, reporting Scotland.
Iran has warned that it will target UK, US and French military bases and ships in the region if they help defend Israel. Both Israel and Iran have continued to launch strikes against each other as the crisis in the Middle East intensifies. Last night, Israel says it struck a nuclear facility in addition to Thursday's attacks. Lucy Williamson reports.
Israel says Iran fired 200 missiles yesterday. This is what one of those missiles can do. This morning, bomb disposal teams scoured the wreckage of a residential complex near Tel Aviv. Some here said it reminded them of Gaza. People have been coming back here today, picking through the damage. They say this destruction is all part of Israel's long conflict with its regional enemies, but it's also evidence of what changed here yesterday as missiles slammed into central Israel. That this is not just another limited confrontation, it's a war. Last night, as we sheltered in a stairwell in Tel Aviv, our camera captured this footage of missiles slipping through Israel's air defences. First, one on the left, then another to the right, which hit a residential building. Footage of the damage quickly appearing on social media. Erez was trapped for 40 minutes with his Ukrainian wife Anastasia, who he said had come here to escape the war in Ukraine.
All of a sudden I hear a huge explosion and I see a blast coming through the door, like a flame, like a real explosion. And the next thing I know is there's a lot of dust and a lot of smoke coming into the house.
Now suffering from smoke inhalation, his message to Israel's Prime Minister was keep going.
They want to destroy us. And if they will have nuclear weapons and they don't care about hitting civilians, the next time it would be a nuclear missile.
Iranian media say 60 people were killed overnight in an Israeli strike on this building in Tehran. Among the dead, 20 children. In a nearby home, one resident said an explosion threw him up against the ceiling. Others called for a tougher response.
We want a firm response that holds the dignity of Iranians. If they hit us once, Iran should hit them 100 times.
This war began when Israel launched hundreds of airstrikes across Iran. Tehran has fought a long shadow war against Israel's existence. But open conflict risks escalation. Iran is now threatening those who helped defend Israel too. Lucy Williamson, BBC News, Tel Aviv.
A manhunt is underway in the US for a gunman who shot dead a Democratic Party politician and her husband in their home. The attack in the state of Minnesota has been described as a politically motivated assassination. Well, earlier, the gunman, posing as a police officer, shot another Democratic state lawmaker and his wife, but they both survived. President Trump has called the attacks horrific. Well, protests against his administration have been cancelled across Minnesota after the shootings, after flyers advertising those protests were found in the suspect's car, alongside a list of names and a manifesto. Lee Milner reports.
Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman, the top Democrat in the Minnesota House, and her husband were shot and killed early this morning. Meanwhile, State Senator John Hoffman, also a Democrat, and his wife were targeted in their home as well in a separate shooting. They survived after being shot multiple times.
My good friend and colleague, Speaker Melissa Hortman, and her husband Mark, were shot and killed early this morning in what appears to be a politically motivated assassination. Our state lost a great leader, and I lost a dearest of friends. Speaker Hortman was someone who served the people of Minnesota with grace, compassion, humor, and a sense of service.
Waltz said the targeted shootings occurred in Brooklyn Park and Champlin, neighbouring cities to Minneapolis. Brooklyn Park police have said a suspect was impersonating a police officer. The police exchanged gunfire with the suspect at Hortman's home, but he managed to escape. US President Donald Trump says he's been briefed on the terrible shooting that took place in Minnesota, which appears to be a targeted attack against state lawmakers. Such horrific violence will not be tolerated in the United States of America. A manhunt is currently underway for a suspect. Lee Milner, BBC News.
Well, some news just in, and a man has died following a serious flat fire in Perth. Police say he was pronounced dead at the scene. An 8-year-old girl and a 27-year-old man were taken to hospital for treatment. About 40 residents were evacuated after the alarm was raised just before 2 a.m. The blaze broke out on the top floor of the 4-storey building, which houses the Royal Bar, on the ground floor. The roof has been completely destroyed. Councils have tabled a new pay offer to try to see off this threat of strikes. It's a 2-year offer with 4% this year and 3.5% next year. The biggest council union, Unison, says it will ballot its members and is recommending that they accept the offer. Investigators in India are decoding the black box data recorder from the plane that crashed in Ahmedabad on Thursday. So far, at least 270 bodies have been recovered from the scene of the disaster after the Air India plane came down shortly after takeoff. It's hoped the black box data will provide key information on what caused the crash. The Scottish Conservative leader, Russell Findlay, has committed his party to a promise of tax cuts at next year's Holyrood election. In his first conference speech since becoming leader, he said the policy could be funded by taking a claymore to wasteful public spending. Here's our political editor, Glenn Campbell.
Russell Findlay leads the second largest party at Holyrood, but he knows that ranking is under huge pressure with the rise of Reform UK. He said it was his job to turn things around after the Conservatives had lost their way in government at Westminster.
We've got a mammoth task to win back public trust. Even earning the right to be heard will take a huge and collective commitment.
His big idea is a Taxpayers' Savings Act to get better value for public money.
This proposal would save £650 million by cutting red tape, getting a grip on spending and harnessing business expertise. We would then use that money to bring down people's taxes. And by doing that, we would start to restore trust.
So what specifically would he get rid of to save cash and cut tax?
Well, there are so many public sector bodies in Scotland that don't deliver value for money.
Can you name one?
There are huge numbers of quangos that don't deliver value for money.
Can you name one you'd get rid of?
The Scottish Land Commission is one, perhaps, good example.
How much would that save?
Well, I don't have that figure to hand.
He said plans set out in policy papers would be fully funded and would offer a common sense alternative to the Holyrood consensus.
Thank you, Conference. Thank you.
Glenn Campbell, Reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
And there's an interview with Russell Findlay on the Sunday show tomorrow morning at 10 over on BBC One. A couple who set up the charity Kids Operating Room have received MBEs for their contribution to children's health. Edinburgh-based Gareth and Nicola Wood founded the charity in 2018. Meanwhile, Lorna and John Norgrove were also awarded OBEs this year for the work of their foundation for women and children, which was set up after their daughter was killed in Afghanistan.
The real heroes are the women left in Afghanistan who are under all these restrictions by the Taliban, who are, struggling on a day-to-day basis, and the women who have left Afghanistan to go abroad to pursue their careers or to carry on with their education. They're the real heroes of this story.
For us, getting the MBE is wonderful, but it really is testament to the team that we work with at Kids Operating Room. And so the award is not just really for Gareth and myself, it's for everybody that we work with who works tirelessly to try really hard and drive forward our mission.
Right, time for the weather forecast now. At the map for us is Gillian.
Good evening to you. We've had some really heavy thundery downpours around today, really poor travelling conditions, all down to an area of low pressure that's been tracking northwards. It continues to move north tonight, but for this evening, still some heavy and potentially thundery outbreaks to come, especially for northeast Scotland, the North Highlands and the Northern Isles. That yellow warning from the Met Office still in place until 9 p.m. And further south, still some heavy outbreaks of rain during the first part of the night. And then as the night goes on, many parts turning drier, some clearer spells following into western Scotland. A mild night, temperatures holding up between 10 and 12 Celsius for most of us. Tomorrow, rain will linger over the Northern Isles. Elsewhere, a bright spell during the morning and then cloud drifting eastwards, thick enough to produce some bits and pieces of patchy rain. Nothing as heavy as what we saw today. It'll be warmest in the northeast, up to 20 Celsius. Cooler for the Northern and Western Isles and for western coastal fringes with a westerly breeze, brisk at times. Heading into the new week then, and high pressure building in from the south, but still a couple of weak frontal features in play in Scotland on Monday. So it's predominantly dry, best of the sunshine in the east. Across the west, thicker cloud at times, producing some bits and pieces of patchy rain for the Western Isles and the west coast. Top temperature at 22 Celsius in Aberdeenshire. And for the rest of the week, lots of dry and bright weather to come, and particularly from midweek onwards, we'll see those temperatures rising a wee bit as well. That's the forecast.
Gillian, thank you for that. Plenty more news online. Andrew Black is back here tomorrow night at 7 from all of us. Have a good night. Bye-bye for now.